announced the hospital, announced on his birthday in 1991. He said about the hospital, I was working at the Central Trust. I was in the accounts section. My father was the accountant. And if not now, some other time, I'll tell you how he brought me close to my father just for those 2 years before my father died. That's a whole different story altogether. But I was an accountant there. We knew the trust is nowhere close to the money that would have been needed when he announced this hospital thing. My father was, his blood pressure, it shocked all of us. I'm like, wow. You know, we thought Swami was just living in cloud 9. This is no way possible.
And a year later to the day it was functioning.
It was functioning. It was fascinating. So he had things in place. He knew exactly what he was doing. He had things in place. And he got the ball rolling at the right time. It's a mastermind. It's a master plan that was brought into effect. And for us, even though we saw this happening in the institute, and the college was just being built, it was part of another university, and Swami is constantly telling us, I'm going to make this a Swami's university. It's going to be a Sai university. And we would be very humble, very prayerful, but in the back of our mind, we would look at it as something, we couldn't comprehend it.
Sunder, how were you picked by Baba to be one of his attendants, so close to this form?
I mentioned this in our previous interview. When I got my first interview, he kept asking me, what do you want, what do you want, what do you want? And I said, I don't want anything, but he forced me. And so he came so close with all his big hair, I was so terrified. Suddenly it came to my mind that I've always been curious as to what Baba would do in his room. Because for me, like I said, I wasn't born in Sai family. I came across Swami because of circumstances, my father not being in Bombay, and they were looking for a good college, and one thing led to the other, and it's all there in our previous interview, and I comes to Swami's fold. And so, but when I'm watching him, giving darshans and going upstairs, I would spend, those days we lived right bang across Swami's mandir in the dorms. We didn't have a hostel built yet. So that was all being built, and the college had already started. So we were living bang across Swami's. So I would constantly, walk down and stand in front of Swami's mandir in the evenings and nights and watch that little light on. I wonder what goes on in there. I wonder what goes on in there, and how great it would be if I can be there, so that I can really know that this is my guru. For me, it was a very ardent desire. Well, yeah, and then, so when he cornered me in the interview, I said, Swami, I want to be. I called it room duty. I wanted to do room duty, Swami. I want to be in your room. He said, oh, acha, come from tomorrow.
So it's that simple. I mean, I remember...
It was very simple. He just said, come from tomorrow.
I remember most when you told the story before, your desire. But see, I equate that with everybody's desire. I think you're not unusual. There's a lot of people who want to know what Swami's like behind the closed door.
Yes.
And is he looking at the letters? Is he holding meetings? And
right.
Devotees and trust members and others coming up. You had a chance to play that out. I guess my curiosity, though, is that can't be the first time that people asked him to do it, but he picked you. He gave you the opportunity.
I'm so grateful to that.
Did you know you were on a fast track before he gave you that hint that your wish is granted? Come on up.
I didn't know I was on. I didn't know what track I was on, whether fast or slow. But I am so grateful because I got to see him, and that's why I don't hesitate sharing these stories, because I think posterity should know, or people even now should know, what the true Sai Baba, who the true Sai Baba is.
Okay, who is the true Sai Baba?
The true Sai Baba is one who is just one with what he said, one with what he thought, and one with what he did. He was exactly the same person as he spoke. If he said, I'm an avatar, it's because he believed he was one. He lived even in his own quarters, even when he was alone, he believed he was. And that is why I keep telling him, said yesterday, he would look at a letter and he would look at the name. And for him, looking at a name or a letter would mean he's looking and blessing at that person. I mean, he would honor himself, literally, in that sense of the term. He respected himself because he knew what his body was. He knew where he walked, where he looked, where he touched, and whom he touched. And even in his room, a little shift, if he wants a chair in one particular angle, he just wants it there. It's fascinating how he would want his room clean. And this is, again, there is signs of omniscience, omnipresence, and playfulness, if you will. Be clean the interview room downstairs before he comes down every day. And so one day he comes, and he's just walking down the steps. He's not even come and inspected the room, because the next day he was interviewing the president of India or something. He said, I want the room spick and span. So we literally, as it is, you know how clean it is, but even we went an extra step forward and we cleaned every single possible place. 4 of us cleaning a 10-foot by 12-feet room. Okay, 4 of us. We spent every single possible place.
Did you use a toothbrush to clean all the crevices?
It was those brooms and cloths and everything, and no, not a toothbrush. But so Swami walks down the steps, and he's not even come down and inspected the room. Okay, so the steps are so narrow, and so it's a winding staircase. So he comes down, and as he's coming down, it's a lazy, 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 lazy. So we knew we are in trouble. The moment we knew we are in trouble. But we had cleaned every single place. So he comes right down, and straight away he takes me and says, look at that corner. And there's a little small cobweb there. Lazy, lazy, lazy. You're not good.
Like a drill instructor in the army.
So number one is, how did he know there was a cobweb? I mean, he's upstairs and we have been cleaning for 2 hours, literally. And so he walks down, he didn't even look around to see a cobweb. He just walks down, straight away takes me and says, look at that, there's a cobweb. So you're wondering, now does he even need to know something? There are moments when he becomes omniscient, I think, without his own knowing. It's so natural for him. You know, and that is the kind of spontaneity with which we lived every moment of his time.
Time for a couple of final questions, and I'm reminded of, how can I put this? Did he ever get to the point in your life where he clearly and definitively touched your heart?
Oh yes. Yes, he did.
And did he ever get to the point in your life where he broke your heart?
Yes, he did. He has done both.
You agreed to this interview.
I know I did. When he touched my heart, and I've probably not even shared this with Maya, or maybe I've done it, I don't know if I did, but there was this moment which I can never ever forget. He was once talking about the story of Rama to just 2 of us who were sitting in his room, and he's talking about Hanuman and Rama and the relationship between Hanuman and Rama. And for me, right from the day I began to accept him, I saw myself as a Hanuman. I mean, for me, that relationship was more as a servant and a master. And even now, I identify myself more as Hanuman rather than Arjuna or Radha or any of those other devotion. For me, it's master-servant. So for me, it was always like that, my God and master. I always used to write to him, and the envelope I'll put Sri Sathya Sai, my God and master.
You were born to serve.
I'm grateful for that. I always saw it. So when he was talking about Rama and Hanuman, I was very moved with that whole episode. And then Swami asked the other boy what he wants, and he was very benevolent that afternoon. And he said something. I was hardly listening to what that was going on, because I was so caught up in that moment. Because Swami said how sacred was the relationship between the Lord and the one who serves. And he was talking about Hanuman as, you know, he says, all of us are Hanuman, we all have monkey minds, but then we can become from a normal monkey to this great devotee. And so he turned to me and he said, what do you want? And I told Swami, because Swami said Rama was so engrossed with Hanuman, and he would hug Hanuman often. So that is what he was talking in the story, and so I asked him, Swami, how lucky was Rama? How lucky was Hanuman that Rama would hug him often? Swami looked at me. You want me to hug you? He asked. Like Rama did? I said, yes. He said, get up. And he hugged me. And when he released me, he said, how was it? I had tears in my eyes. But then very playfully he said, I was Rama when I hugged, but you're still not Hanuman.
You're a Hanuman wannabe.
Hanuman wannabe, yes. Yes.
What a touching story with which to conclude, unless I sense you have one more little note to add to that. Do you?
No, I think we leave it at that.
Okay.
All I want to say is the relationship between Baba and his devotees, individuals, are very sacred, very pure. And there should be no room for any of Baba's devotees to give room for any kind of doubts or anything that would cross their mind thinking otherwise. That is the opportunity for us to grow out of the box. There's an opportunity for us to surrender to our masters, and it's going to come to us individually in our lives at some point or the other.
It's an installment, has to do with something that near and dear to your heart, and also I'm sure quite sad, the loss of your father.
Yes. The reason I share that story is again to prove Swami's omniscience, and this is where I saw the cosmic part of Sai, the almighty, powerful master walking the earth, somebody who would say, I am the divine. For somebody to come up with that, for me to be able to digest that fact, I think this one experience proved it beyond doubt. It's one thing to say I am divine, and the other thing is to actually prove to you. And yes, he had proved it innumerable times, but this was something very profound, and it has so many lessons. So let me get to it straight away, since we have very little time left on this segment. My father was, like I said, an extremely rigid disciplinarian, and for him, life was a very serious thing. I mean, he would take up seva very seriously, and he would, when Swami said, you are in charge of the Central Trust accounts, he said, okay, I am, and he thought the whole trust was resting on his shoulders, and that's it. For him, that was the whole world. He wouldn't even come for darshan, because it was his office time. And so he would be out there, and every time Swami had to speak to him on my father's birthday or bless him, he would tell me, I'm going to talk to your father tomorrow, so ask him to come. Everybody wants interviews with Swami. They ask Swami, I have to ask your father for an interview. He would playfully chide me, but my father was, for me, darshan is not important. He has given me a task, I will do that.
And before you proceed, a word or two about how he received such an awesome responsibility. He was in charge of the accounts for the whole trust that ran Prashanti Nilayam?
The Sathya Sai Central Trust. He was in charge of the trust. At that time, the trust was growing, and so he would sit with the internal and external auditors, and and account for every single expense, and help them make the double entry, and set up a lot of things in those days. He was an accountant, so when he came and retired, Swami said, can you be an accountant here? And so he sat with Colonel Jogarao, and Colonel Jogarao liked him and told Swami he's a great candidate. And Swami said, yes, okay, then put him in charge of the accounts. And for Swami, my father, that was the ultimate. He said, finally I can actually write accounts honestly. See, he's been working with commercial companies, and he would always have this in the back of my mind. When can I ever find a honest accountant? When can I ever be an honest person to say, okay, this is a liability, this is an asset, and this is how it is to be.
No more cooking the numbers.
No more cooking the numbers. And he was very glad, and for him that was the fruit of all his labor throughout his life, found fulfillment at serving Baba. Just like Maya says, her father was longing to fly, and finally all his flight carriers ended up flying for Swami. So I guess every carrier, no matter how unconnected it might seem, you have Ted Henry doing the news reading for 40 years, somewhere thousands of miles away, but now he's able to use his talent to serve Baba in the fag end of his career. I mean, after retirement, you're using the same talent and using it for Baba's mission.
Along with Jyoti Cleary's guidance.
Oh, of course.
Which she gets from Baba.
Of course, there's no doubt about it. I mean, the reason why I bring this about is quite a few people think that what they're doing is not spiritual.
Yeah.
And something spiritual has to be something else.
Great point.
No, I think every single career, every single task you take has a potential of being a matter of service to God. I have a friend in Dayton, an extremely well-known, a very profound accountant, in the sense he brings about merging of different companies, and he helps in all this kind of stuff. He's a great helper in preparing business plans and things like that. Now he takes young adults and youngsters from Swami's fold and helps them come up with good business plans. He says, that's my seva for Swami, that's my talent, I'm using it. So and apparently a business plan which is just dry numbers and about profits, he is taking that and making it his worship. I think anything and everything, if you look for it to be spiritual, can be spiritual.
Work is worship.
Work becomes worship. And that's the beauty of this lesson I found. Anyway, my father was so strict about his work, so for him that was his worship. And Swami would have to call him, wait for him, and speak to him if he had to speak something. That relationship was amazing. My father's only desire as a Hindu Brahmin was to die in Puttaparthi. He said, this is my only desire, I have to die in Puttaparthi. And he told my mother, when I die, you should chant Gayatri in my ear, don't cry. Don't be crying and wailing. You should be chanting Gayatri in my last moments of my life. And my mother would say, oh yeah, you do the same thing to me too. And I would sit down and say, you know what, don't you guys have anything better to speak about? But that's how my father was. For him, everything was a matter of, okay, this has to be done this way. And that's it, no second thoughts about it. 1992 summer, Swami had to leave for Vrindavan, and my father, and Swami had specifically told my father that summer he would not be in Puttaparthi. He said, summer you go spend with your daughters and your grandchildren, and then you come back, your son is going to be here. So 1992 he left for
Kodaikanal or Vrindavan?
Swami left for Vrindavan and then Kodaikanal, but my father planned to leave on April 1st, on April 2nd or 3rd, he planned to leave for to the north to see his daughters, that's my sisters. He went to Bhopal, which is a far place, about 3,000 miles from Puttaparthi. And so he went to Vrindavan, Swami blessed him, Swami said go, he took Swami's blessings and then went to Bhopal. And just before that he had met Maya and he told me that he likes Maya and Maya is the right person for me. He blessed both of us. I said, I don't know, this is all up to Swami, but for him it was something had to be done. And I realized now that was 20 days before he died. So April 1st we celebrate as our engagement day. It's also an April Fool's Day. But my father blessed both of us and said, when I come back, we will take it up with Swami. April 9th, I remember, he left for Bhopal. And this was my father's only desire, because anybody dying in Puttaparthi, he would be there, out there, he will do the last rites for them and take the body to Puttaparthi and do the cremation and do all that. Because he said, as a Hindu Brahmin, it's my duty to do that. Honor any fallen body and never let them know that there was nobody to give them. In India, that's a very sacred thing. It says Kandadena, means don't let a dead body just be there to rotten. You have to always give a shoulder for a dead body. And that's why people have sons, because they say the sons can carry them when they die, and things like that. So my father was always wanting to die in Puttaparthi. That was his biggest desire. When he went to Bhopal, he had a heart attack. I got a telegram, and by the time I reached, he died. He died in some unknown, weird place in Bhopal on April 20th. When I got a call, I rushed, and I didn't know it. They said, father's serious. I rushed, and by the time I reached there, I saw him in a coffin with ice, and they just preserved the body for 1.5 days before I came. Of course, I was heartbroken. I went and spoke to my mother, and my mother, in amidst sobs and tears, she told me, I did exactly as your father wanted me to. When he kept watching the monitor, though it was behind him, he would turn his head and kept watching the monitor, I believe. Suddenly his kidney failed and blah blah blah, is a multi-organ failure or whatever, and that was a small hospital. They didn't know what to do about it. He told my mother like this. When the time came, my mother sat. She made him sit, went into his ear, chanted the Gayatri, and then he collapsed on her shoulder. So she told me, I did my job, I did my job. For me, those first 2 hours was blank, and then came an anger towards Swami.
In you?
In me.
For disappointing your dad's?
My anger was, I said, I know my father had to die, I was ready for that, but why here? You were talking about the 3 zeros, right? This was partly one of those zeros where I said, why here? This was a person who served you day and night. This was a person who thought about you day and night. And his 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock morning ritual never stopped even for a day, whether he slept at 1 in the night or 7 in the evening or 2 in the night. He would be up, get up, have his ritual bath and do the chanting, and he was so rigid, so rigid. I said, why couldn't that one desire be fulfilled? Why in this unknown place, even today, I don't even know where his body was cremated. So why would it be here? And I was so angry with Swami. There was no room for any doubts anymore, because I had seen Swami's omniscience and omnipotence many times over. So there wasn't that he didn't know. I said, why would Swami allow this to happen? Why would this happen? I was very angry with him. So my mother asked, don't you want to send a telegram to Swami? I said, I'm not even interested in informing him. I'll take care of it. I'll send him maybe a week later or 10 days later. I'm not even interested in informing. So nobody informed anybody in the ashram, because they waited for me to do whatever, They said, okay, it's your call, whatever. And then I waited there, spent 10, 12 days, did all the rites that they wanted me to do, and then sent a telegram to Swami just as a formality. Swami, father passed away. Pranams. That's all I said, because I was very angry. I didn't want to say anything. I stayed there for some time, and then I came back to Vrindavan, and Swami had returned back from Kodaikanal. And so when he came out for darshan, I was sitting in the first line. He came out straight to me, and he said, Chesko, means touch my feet. Okay, I touched his feet, I looked up to him, and he said, don't worry, I'm here. And then suddenly he had a playful thing in his eyes. He said, did the boys tell you in Kodaikanal what happened? Did they tell you? I'm like, Swami, what would they tell me? I said, no, Swami. Oh, wait, I'll come back from darshan and tell you. So he goes off for darshan. And then I couldn't wait, of course, for Swami to come back and tell me what was it that he wanted me to know. So I turned around, and one of the Kodaikanal boys came to me, and Sunder, I heard about your dad, and I'm so sorry to hear about his death. I said, thank you for your condolence. So he said, Sunder, I want to check something with you. I said, sure, what is it? He pulls out his diary and he goes to the dates, and he said, when did your father die? I said, April 20th, he passed away. He said, what time? I said, what do you mean, what time? From what the doctors told me, it was at 2:30 or 3:30 in the afternoon, he died. So I asked him, why are you asking me these details? He pulls out his diary and he says, Sunder, look at this. On April 20th in the afternoon, Swami was with us in Kodaikanal. At this time, around 3:30 or 4 or whatever the time was, he pauses, he keeps quiet for a while, for a few seconds, and then he asks people, now this is happening thousands of miles away. He's asking people around him, how many of you know Sunder Iyer's father? How many of you know Sunder Iyer? So obviously the boys knew, because I was there in Puttaparthi. So they raised their hands. A couple of primary school people raised their hands and said, we know Sunder Iyer. And Swami said, oh, you all know him? Yeah, his father just reached my feet. I listened to what that boy said. I was stunned. And then Swami comes back from darshan, calls me inside. Did you know what I said? Did you know what I said? Oh, your father wanted to go to Chitravati. That is only the body. I gave him my feet. The reason why this is so powerful is we think we ask for the highest, not knowing that God has even greater plans for us. So for him, the body was nothing. The body can perish wherever it is. But the fact that he said, oh, your father wanted to go to Chitravati. The body can go anywhere. I gave him my feet. So on the one side, what hit me was, for him to say, I have given him my feet. He has come into me. Why? He said, and he asked me, why? Enduku telsa? He said, because he served me. Because he served me, he has reached my feet. That is the importance he gives for service. And this is such a powerful story that I often think of as the ultimate revelation for me as to who Baba is. And that's why, for me to even define him as God is limiting who he is.
Sunder, I'm speechless. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing from beyond your heart. And Sai Ram.
Sai Ram.